and welcome to my channel. Today's video I'm going to go over 3 different media that you can use to add color to your card projects. I have here watercolor pencils, regular colored pencils, and alcohol markers. In this case, this is Stampin' Up! Stampin' Blends. The different media has different results, and they have a different blending method. The watercolor pencils, you just blend it with plain water, and I have an aqua pen here which I'm going to use to demonstrate how that works. And the result of the watercolor pencils is thus. This is just blending the colors from one to the other. I've taken and put a similar colors for each of the different medias here so that you can have a comparison. But you take the light and the dark and you blend them together, just dry like this, and then for the watercolor pencils you add water, and that gives you a smoothing effect. And that's what this demonstrates. For the colored pencils, it's exactly the same. You have your light and your dark and you blend them together, and then you take a media with and then you take Gamsol, which is odorless mineral spirits, or baby oil. In this case, I have a sponge which has been saturated with baby oil, and a blending tool, and you just rub it and it breaks down the wax and leave the pigment behind. So that is the method for blending the color pencils. And the Stampin' Blends, they blend on their own just by the flow of the alcohol ink. So that's why there's no second picture here. And the 2 colors are identical. I have 2 different shades, and they blend when they meet. So I'm going to show you how to do the same card using the 3 different medias, and then you can see the results that you get and how they differ. These are the cards that I created with these 3 different media. I couldn't match the colors exactly, but I used what I had, which is all you can do in the end. And the Stampin' Blends colors were significantly darker than the watercolor and the colored pencil, but I think it's a similar effect. What I'm going to do is go through and create all 3 cards one after the other. I'm going to use the same materials except for the media and the blending method, and I'm going to show you step by step how to create the card. To create this card, I used the Bold Blossoms coloring sheets by Raspberry Sweet, and this was designed by Dawn McVeigh. There were only these 3 in there that were alike, so I had to get a different one, but I wanted to stick with the landscape section. In addition to that, I'm going to be using the Love Bug stamp set by Honeybee Stamps and the Hugs die cut by Honeybee Stamps. I also mentioned this new die sets that I got from Honeybee Stamp in an earlier video, and this is one that I mentioned which has the double shadow. I thought it was adorable and I loved getting it. I also have my free bee that they gave me, and I also mentioned that in the video, so I'm going to have that bee in here. And why are you here? We're not using you. But here's another one. It's the happy. Since I have it, you can see it. So I'll be doing that later. And I'm also going to be using some rhinestones for the center of the flowers, and my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. Okay, let's get started. I went ahead and trimmed this color sheet down to 5 by 3 3/4, and I also stamped the sentiment on it. But I want this to continue to the inside, so I got a micron marker. Any black marker will do, and it had 1 period, and I'm going to give it an ellipse to give it a continuation. And this will be the same on all of this. I have, for the watercolor pencils, I needed my aqua pen, and I also got some paper towels. So the inside part, I'm going to make it the darker shade, and you just go over and just put the color down. It's very simple, nothing difficult about it at this point. Now the lighter going to come in from the outside and just go all the way around. I'm not worried about the pencil mark showing up at this point. I will fix that when I add the water. So I want that out a little bit more. There. And now I'm going to blend it with the lighter color. And I'll get some blending by the dark color, the dry coloring, but I'll get a lot more once I bring in the water. Okay. Now, the water pen has to be primed a little bit to get the water flowing, but not too much because it would quickly become overwhelming. And if you have too much color, just take the color off with your paper towel. So I'm just going to blend it carefully, not to go over the edge if I can help it. And you see the color is just showing up beautifully. All right, now that I've gone around the edge, I'm going to come in and blend it to the darker. And it just immediately starts blending. And pull out some of that color and blend it out. A little bit more mixing here. Okay, very easy. Same techniques. I'm going to go and do the rest of the flowers. Oh, one thing about the watercoloring, make sure that you do not color add water on two sections side by side, because the water can flow into each other and you'll get a big mess with the colors. So you want to be sure to hop all around so that you're working in dry areas. All right, that is the watercolor one. This just needs a little bit of time to dry. If you wanted to rush it along, you could run over it with your heat tool, but it'll air dry just fine. Now for the colored pencils. As with the watercolor, the blending media was water, and the colored pencils, the blending media is going to be baby oil. And I use the blending stub here and this sandpaper on a board. You dip the stump into the baby oil and pick up a little bit and blend the colors that way. And as you saw, I took the water pen and ran it over the paper towel to clear the color. In this case, you run it back and forth over the sandpaper to take off the saturated part of paper, because this is just very hard rolled paper. So you just go back and forth over it and you get a new fresh side. All right, I'm going to go through this, and it's identical steps. It's just now it's baby oil. Okay, that is the colored pencil ones with the baby oil. You have to be careful when you do this not to oversaturate your paper with the oil, because it would be a real mess. But you just keep blending until you're satisfied with the results. So I'll bring the watercolor back so that you can compare them. And now for the alcohol markers. The colors for the alcohol markers are darker than the other two, but as I said, it is the same steps. And there is no blending media, it just blends itself. The thing about the alcohol markers is it will dry out, so don't go and do too much at once or you will have a real problem blending. So I actually should have not done all of that center area first. So you just go like 3 or 4 petals. That's about as far as you can do before it starts to dry out on you. And once it dries, it's really, really hard to blend it. And also the alcohol will seep a little bit beyond where you're going, so you want to stop just inside where you want it to go to allow the seepage to happen so that it don't flow over each other. All right, now the alcohol markers, there's another step that I'm going to take, and I'm going to use this color lifter, and I'm going to use it to lift the color from certain parts and make it a little bit lighter. So for the outer edge of these flowers, I want them to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to take the color lifter and lift the color, and it's more like push the color. So the direction you want to go is toward the color, not away from the color, because this will make the color start to move. And if I were to go that way, then the color may extend over the edge of the flower, and that's not what I want. And this is a delayed effect, so always go really easily when you start out, because you'll get more lifting than you think you will. So you do it a little bit and then you wait and see what the effect was and see if that is as much as you wanted, the movement. And if it isn't, then you just add a little bit more, because it's always easier to take away the color than to try to fix a mistake if you're too heavy-handed. So you don't see it immediately, but it'll eventually, you'll see it starting to lighten up along the edge. And this is also useful if you had gone over the edge, then you could use the color lifter to push the color back inside the line. But I did pretty good, so I don't think I'm going to have to do that. But I just want the blue and the pink area to be just a little bit lighter. Okay, I think that's enough. All right, and that is that. Now let's bring the others in so that you can see. This was the watercolor, this was the colored pencils, and this is, ooh, had something on it, the Stampin' blends. Now the watercolor panel is doing a little bit of warping, so I'm going to run this through my Big Shot machine, through the two plates, and that'll make it flatten out a bit. Now I need to do my die cutting. I'm going to get the shadow of the hugs from the mat, the back mat, and it'll be covered by the panel so it won't show. The second shadow will be from this extra white scrap, and the black words hug will be from this little black scrap. So I'm going to go off camera so I can use my Gemini machine. I can't bring it into the camera because it's too big and too heavy, but I will leave a link to the Gemini machine down below so that you can check it out. Be right back with the die cutting. I couldn't bring you the Gemini machine, but I have brought the plate so that you could see how it comes out. The Gemini machine allows you to do a lot of die cutting at once. And since this is a three section die cut, it made sense to use the Gemini machine. So here I have my shadow from the mat, and this is a magnetic plate, and it holds the die in place very tight, as you could see. And here is the words, and here is the first shadow, and I got a couple out of there. Okay, I highly recommend, if you can get your hand on the Gemini machine, you could, if you really are serious about doing a lot of die cutting, because it really helps, because you have all of this area here where you can lay your die cuts and get all at once. The only thing I don't like about the sandwich for the machine is your die cuts have to go face up. So you put your, let me grab a piece of paper, you put your paper over it, so you can't really see what you're doing, and it may move. But this is the way they say do it. To me, I'm used to doing it this way so I can see what I'm doing. But I assume if you put it down this way and you put your second plate on, then if you were very careful, you could flip it over and feed it through that way. I don't know about that yet. I've only just got the machine and used it a few times. It was a Christmas present. So for that stamper in your life, if you're looking for a good present and you don't mind the cost, this is a good purchase, because it really gets tired, the cranking through the big shot machine. But if you're doing a lot of die cutting, this is really maybe something to consider sinking the money in. And now the part where we just sail on through putting the card together. So the first thing I need to do is to glue the die cuts together and then work on the inside of the card. And that's the finished card. The video was a little long because we needed to go through 3 different coloring media for this video. So again, this was watercolor pencils. Oops, it's out of view, isn't it? Watercolor pencils, colored pencils, and the alcohol markers. And this is Stampin' blends or Copics or the Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope you picked up some techniques about using these coloring options, and I hope that you will try it yourself. You can get any colored pencils. This, I believe, you can get these even from the dollar store or Crayola or something. The watercolor pencils, you can get Prismacolor. There are also watercolor pencils, which are available on Amazon. And these, of course, are the Stampin' Up! Stampin' blends, and you can also get the Copics. I think I said that already, didn't I? I'd like to thank you for watching this video and my other videos. Please hit that subscribe button and become one of my subscribers. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the positive feedback that I'm getting from you all. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank my brother David for the music, and I hope that you are enjoying it. Please have a great day and take care, everyone.